Hey, everybody, welcome back to Silver and Black Today, an Odyssey Sports Original podcast. Do us a favor. If you don't already subscribe to the show, go do it. Wherever you get your audio, subscribe to Silver and Black Today. Rate and review. We appreciate that very much as well. So thanks for being with us. We talk Las Vegas Raiders football. Also, if you're watching us on video, whether it be on YouTube, Rumble, Telegram, X.com, Facebook, wherever you're watching us, thank the folks at BetUS. Yes, BetUS is a sponsor of our video, and not only that, but they are your sponsor. Yes, they'll give you 150% sign-up bonus, freebie, man, 50%. You got to love that, up to $2,000 on your first deposit. That's right. Use the code YouTube150. That's YouTube150, and you can do that wherever you want on their mobile app, on the website. Go check it out. And again, promo code is YouTube150. All right, we're back. We're talking about the Raiders. Myself, Scott Gulbransen, and my co-host Mo Moton. Mo's a senior NFL writer over at Bleacher Report, covering the entire NFL. He also is a Raiders columnist at sportsnaut.com. You can follow him on x.com at Mo Moton, MOEMOTON. I am at LV Gully, the show, SNB Today. Mo, I know you got your fill of your Thanksgiving meal. You got your cake. You got everything. You're ready to get back into the action here. We have lots of football to feast on. We're going to get to the Raiders, but, you know, man, what a football weekend between the pros on Thanksgiving and then, of course, Black Friday, which we're going to talk about in a second. And then we had just amazing college football on Saturday, a great Sunday in the NFL with some wacky stuff happening. Crazy, crazy weekend for football fans.
Thanksgiving week is always, for me, it's the beginning of a fun part of the football season, where you start to get the conference championships. The playoff picture starts to get a little more clear. Start to get an idea of where teams are going to be drafting. Lots to talk about, of course, between, as you said, college and the pros, and we'll dig into it.
Yes, it's going to be fun. Let's dive right into Friday's game. Obviously, the Raiders, they lose a close one to the Kansas City Chiefs, and lots to talk about with this game. 19-17 was the final there. But one of the things that we said for the last few weeks, Mo, when it was evident that this team wasn't going to go anywhere as far as postseason and other things going on with the Raiders, we said, look for progress, look for development of players, and see how it goes. That's where you can find some of the silver lining in what has been a really difficult year for Raider Nation. And I think we saw some of that. They go to Kansas City. I know a lot of people, even the announcers on the game, were like shocked that it wasn't a blowout. I guess they didn't watch the Chiefs all year, who really haven't clicked like they used to, even though they keep winning. So you have the Raiders go into Kansas City, and they keep it close. You had a nice defensive effort again from the Raiders. And the offense did better. I want to focus a little bit on the offense today, because I thought we started to see Scott Turner open things up a little bit. We saw more commitment to the run. We saw Sincere McCormick, we'll talk about him in a second, run better. Still not good enough, but better. And we saw Aiden O'Connell have a big day. What were your overall impressions when you saw how this game was called from the beginning against, now, a Chiefs defense that's very good up front right now? They're a little banged up in the secondary. But what did you think of the plan overall as the Raiders came out in that first half?
I mean, the Raiders are usually a team that starts pretty well. Even under Luke Getsy, they'll get you a early touchdown drive. Felt like the Raiders wanted to take control of the football game from the beginning. They weren't afraid to throw Aiden O'Connell into the fire, have him throw the ball downfield. Clearly, his thumb wasn't an issue. He did say it wasn't 100%, but he said it was close. And it's definitely good enough to push the ball. You saw that later, especially later in the game, when he had that touchdown pass to Trey Tucker for 58 yards. But as usual, I think the Raiders are a team that game plans well. It's the in-game adjustments and the counters that they usually struggle with. And I talked about it on the last show that the Kansas City Chiefs secondary has been leaky over the past few weeks. That this is not the same defense we saw last year when Aiden O'Connell played and didn't complete a pass after the first quarter. This is a defense that has some issues on the back end, and the Raiders were able to exploit some of that.
Yeah, they sure were. And you think about it, too, I just thought overall the mix of plays, some of the kind of things I thought that I've heard from people who listen to the show that drove them nuts under Luke Getsy was this idea that, hey, if it's second down, we're running it up the middle like every single possession. You saw Scott Turner mix in and try to focus on hitting Brock Bowers, try to utilize the weapons that they do have. We called it as well. We said, hey, we think Jacoby Myers will be used the last 2 weeks, really. But we thought Jacoby Myers would play heavily in this game, and he certainly did to a certain point, as did Brock Bowers, even Michael Mayer when they went to him, he had some opportunities there as well. I thought that there was a much better imagination, if you will, around what to do and how to attack that defense. And you saw a little more, to me, of a chess game, a more of a Scott Turner recognizing, okay, here's what the defense is giving us. Whatever the game plan was, I don't know, but I do know that he was trying to adjust on the fly, which I thought Luke Getsy, for whatever reason, you just didn't see those adjustments, especially in game or at halftime, frankly.
The other thing is, I know we're talking about play calling here, but this is probably the most complete game I've watched the Raiders play all season.
Yeah.
I know they only scored 17 points, but let's not forget Daniel Carlson missed like 3. Now they were 50 plus yards, but he missed 3 50+ yard field goals in that game. He just, it's 2 of them, 2 of the 3. We're talking about a different football game. But in this case, I will say over at Bleacher Report, 5 of my guys, including myself, said the Raiders, and I said in the show that the Raiders will cover. I know they were 12, 13-point underdogs. But I just felt like the Raiders had enough firepower to attack the Chiefs' weaknesses, specifically in the secondary. And you saw that. I figured Brock Bowers will have a big day. I believe, what is it? I'm looking at it, 140 yards on 10 catches and a touchdown pass. You mentioned Jacoby Myers and what he was able to do. Some people took umbrage to the comment I made that he's an underrated wide receiver 1. I'm not saying that the Raiders don't need a wide receiver, but what I'm saying is when Devontae Adams was traded, Jacoby Myers stepped into that role, and he's filled in pretty well being wide receiver 1 for the Raiders. So the Raiders were able, again, from an offensive standpoint, from a defensive standpoint, and you roll it all into one. This is the most complete game I watched them play, even though they only scored 17 points. Still, and we'll talk about this as the show goes on, they found a way to lose. And again, this has nothing to do with tanking, a conspiracy to tank, a unspoken handshake, head nod to tank. This is a team that just is going to make mistakes. You can call it inexperience. You can call it rust. You can call it whatever you want. But that's the game, whether you were on the tank front or not, whether you want to see the Raiders have a top draft pick or not. This is a game that you really wanted to see the Raiders win because they played well enough to win the game.
Yeah, and I said this in the post game, and that is just bad teams find ways to lose, right? We've seen it. We saw it with Carolina. We see it every week. It just happens that way, right? You just see little things don't happen, which is why coaches end up getting fired or players end up losing their jobs because it just doesn't go right. There just seems to be some kind of malaise. But I agree with you. We talked about it last show, right? We said this team hasn't played 4 quarters all season, right? They won the game in Baltimore because they came alive at the end of the game. Gardner Minshew had his best game, of course, as a Raider. And so that was a moment in time, and they did it at the right time. I thought this game, you're right. I thought they played well. And I think there's a lot to be said here for Antonio Pierce. Look, I think he had plenty of, I'm not going to go in deep into it because I think he made the same mistakes in this game that he's made all season long. So you guys have heard us talk about it, so I don't need to revisit it. But I do think I want to give him full credit because if one thing and we've said this all along about Antonio Pierce, he's a great motivator, right? This team has never quit on him. That's clear because if they had quit on him, I know they only have 2 wins, but there's other teams in this league that have 3 wins, 2 wins, and you can tell they're just not all there. That's not the case with the Raiders. And this being a rivalry game, this is a game, remember, that most likely got him over the top to get this job permanently, right or wrong, last year when they won on Christmas. It was a big win for everybody. So I think Antonio Pierce prepared this team as well as he could, and he got them motivated to go out and to understand that this Chiefs rivalry, for the players that were new on the Raiders, to understand what the rivalry means to the fan base, to the franchise. And Mo, you got to give him a lot of credit for that.
The Raiders aren't intimidated by the 2-time reigning back-to-back champions. when they go onto their turf to play football.
Yeah.
So now I felt like the Raiders could have won back-to-back games in Arrowhead, which is huge considering that Aiden O'Connell was the quarterback, a rookie for one of those games. Antonio Pierce being an interim for one of those games. First time full-time head coach for this past game. Even though they say it's not a rivalry until the other side gets some wins on the board, I will say that when it comes to the Chiefs and the Raiders, you can't just assume that just because the Chiefs are this perennial Super Bowl winner and the Raiders are this team at the bottom of the standings that it's going to be a cakewalk. For as long as Antonio Pierce has been there, the Raiders have been. Now I know they lost by 14 in one meeting, lost by 7 earlier this season, but it's going to be a dogfight. And I feel like a lot of people took Antonio Pierce's comments out of context when he said that, we're the worst team in the league, they're the best team in the league, let's just play football. I think he was saying that's the overview of this football game, that everyone's looking at the Raiders like they're this bottom-feeding team and the Chiefs are this mighty, great football team, but we're going to make it ugly, and that's what they did. Neither team scored 20 points. Now, again, on the Raiders part of it, it's missed long field goals. Now the Chiefs had some gaps too. They had I believe this is their third kicker that they've had. But it was what Antonio Pierce said it was. It was a dogfight until the end, until the Raiders made that big mistake. So Antonio Pierce, when he says at the microphone, I'm sure he says to his team in the locker room. So while a lot of people wanted to take that comment and run with it and say, "Oh, Antonio Pierce is calling his team trash. He's calling his team the worst team in the league. He deserves to be fired." That's not what he was doing. He was basically saying, it's us against the world. Everyone's counting us out. No one is expecting anything from us. Let's go out there and play Raider football. And for the most part, they did that. They ran the football well with Sincere McCormick. They pushed the ball downfield with Aiden O'Connell and his pass catchers, but they came up short because, again, they're a flow football team from an operational standpoint. And they botched that last snap, whether regardless of what you think about the call or not. There was a clear miscommunication. Aiden O'Connell took responsibility for it. JPJ took responsibility for it. We'll talk about that as the show goes on. But again, the Raiders can stand toe-to-toe with the Chiefs. Imagine what this Raider team could look like with a healthier roster and possibly an even better, more dynamic quarterback, what they can do in these battles 2 times a year against the Kansas City Chiefs.
Yeah, and I think to your point about mistakes too, a more disciplined team with clear direction that I think that lacks as well. But they performed very well considering. And again, we had somebody say, "Oh, you guys are talking about moral victories." There's no moral victories, but you have to recognize improvement because at this point, what do? Just talk about everything that's bad? No, I think you have to recognize where there's been improvement and where things are done well, because even in the midst of a crappy season, you do things well at times. It's just you're not doing them enough with consistency to be a winning football team.
Word again.
Yes, exactly. And so you got to give credit for that. But the last thing I want to touch on in this segment is Aiden O'Connell, because Aiden O'Connell, I think, continues to prove what you and I have said about him all along, which is he is a good backup quarterback who can win you football games. Because look, he goes out there 23 of 35, 340 yards, 2 touchdowns, and most importantly, no turnovers, right? No turnovers, 116 passer rating on the day, outperformed Patrick Mahomes. Okay. He just did, but he didn't get the most important stat, which is the W. But I do think when you look at Aiden O'Connell, you have a performance like this. And I think a lot of us have, when we look at football, we look at performances, we tend to get some recency bias. Okay. You talked about last year on the Christmas game, he didn't complete a pass after the first quarter. Every player has great games. Every player has subpar games. I think when you look at Aiden O'Connell, what you're seeing is a guy who, man, people are like, well, do you think they keep him even if they draft a quarterback? Yes, he's under contract, and Aiden O'Connell is a very important asset in my view, because look what he did against the Chiefs. Now, imagine you go get a young quarterback, a franchise quarterback, and that person gets hurt, and you're going to Kansas City with a game on the line, maybe even to win a division. It doesn't know. Who knows? You can feel confident in Aiden O'Connell because he can put it up. He's got a great arm. He's accurate most of the time. He's got his downsides too. But Mo, I saw, just to me, this kid belongs in the NFL. And I think he should be a Raider for years to come.
Remember when Dave Ziegler talked about the neck-up qualities? Aidan O'Connell has that. He can quickly adjust and process on the fly, and we know that because one, he had an interim head coach last year. He had a first-time play call last year in Bo Hardigree. Put into a tough situation, dealt a tough, rough hand, was dealt a rough hand this year. So he's coming back off of a broken thumb on a short week, learning a new offense that he hadn't played in yet. Because remember, Scott Turner was promoted after the bye, and it was Luke Getsy as the offensive coordinator. So coming off an injury, short week, new offense, going to the reigning champs field, and still put up 340 yards, had a career day, 2 touchdown passes. We have to appreciate what he's done. I'm not going to crown him the franchise quarterback after that performance.
No.
But I will say that he's at least earned a spot to be the number 2 quarterback next season, at the very least. I prefer him over Gardner Minshew. And I think that his performance also showed that, not to toot our own horn, and a lot of the people who called into our show, but a lot of people who called into our show felt like Aidan O'Connell should have been the starter from day one. And we saw Gardner Minshew in 2 games under Scott Turner, and we saw Aidan O'Connell in 1 game under Scott Turner. And it's clear who was the better quarterback at Scott Turner's offense, which is the better scheme offense over Luke Getsy. It's very clear. Aidan O'Connell is a better quarterback at this stage of his career than Gardner Minshew. I don't think that's a hot take. Some people see that as a bold take, but go back to the preseason. We feel like, wow, Aidan O'Connell didn't clearly outplay Gardner Minshew based on the reports and what we saw in the preseason. We both thought that Aidan O'Connell was the better quarterback, the more accurate quarterback, the more consistent quarterback. And now we've seen 2 years of this. Once Aidan O'Connell gets into a rhythm, he's very accurate, and he's he can deal the football. And you don't have to worry about the high variance of turnover-worthy plays. Now, I know he had that pick 6 in that last preseason game that he and Gardner Minshew competed in, and a lot of people wanted to point to that and say that was the reason Aidan O'Connell didn't win a job. I just feel like the Raiders went with the more experienced, more mobile quarterback, and it turned out to be the wrong decision. Aidan O'Connell is definitely the second-best quarterback on that roster right now.
Yeah,
and
I think
quarterback on that roster.
The best quarterback now. Yeah, I think you're right, and I think this goes back to the decision. And it was a decision that was surprising, but not surprising because we laid out the logic back then, right? And the way that Antonio Pierce discussed it was, hey, we need to start fast, and we think he gives us the best chance to win. This coming from a guy who went to Aidan O'Connell last year, and who Aidan O'Connell did a great job for him, and that's why it was surprising. And now, in retrospect, Antonio Pierce, depending what happens at the end of the season, if he's not retained, which, we saw another report from Albert Breer that I want to mention yesterday that said, quote, there's a lot of uncertainty that's being felt on the part of the coaching staff. They've been given no assurances for 2025. There's a lot of buzz league-wide that Antonio Pierce could be one and done as head coach. And you got to wonder, too, if he makes that choice. I don't know. Do the Raiders have 4 wins, 5 wins? I don't know if Aidan O'Connell is the quarterback, because there's a lot of turnovers at the hands of Gardner Minshew that changed the course of games and momentum and so on. We'll never know. But I agree with you that, and I think even if they get a young quarterback in the draft, which is I would think is the plan, then Aidan O'Connell, I think even going in with a rookie, would have the chance to compete for the job again, and definitely be the number 2 quarterback. And he's on his rookie contract. Makes so much sense. And I was glad to see him go out there and succeed. All right, we're going to step aside for our first break. When we come back, we're going to talk about the call, the officiating. I got a lot of direct messages, Mo, dozens of direct messages from our viewers and listeners about that call, the whistle, the false start versus the illegal format, all that stuff. We're going to get into that in segment 2. Segment 3 is you. We got lots of calls, as you can imagine, from the long holiday weekend. So we'll get back. We hope you had a great Thanksgiving. This is Scott. This is Mo. This is Silver and Black Today, an Odyssey Sports original podcast brought to you on video by our good friends at BetUS. Don't go anywhere. Hey there. Welcome back. It's time for segment number 2 of Silver and Black Today on this Tuesday. It's December. It's chilly where I'm at. I don't know what it's like. Mo, it's cold up there in New York, isn't it now?
It's cold and
Getting hot.
frosty depending on how you feel about 40-degree weather. I usually take 40-degree weather as a little not necessarily frosty, but a little nippy for me.
Not bad.
For me, I don't start to feel cold until it's about 20. But then
Yeah.
again, I grew up in the Northeast, so I'm used to
You're
the
used.
to the cooler temperatures.
You got that thick northeastern skin and blood. It's just thicker. It's like you're used to the heat. Whereas if you're in Las Vegas, it's thin blood because it's hot. And so when it gets cold, you see people wearing ridiculously warm clothing when it's 50. So, but I took the kids to school this morning and it was 18. It was pretty chilly. Luckily, there was
That's
no
quite
wind,
chilly.
so it's good.
Scott,
Go
Scott,
ahead.
quick
Yeah,
sidebar. Whenever I see people in the city, and we call Manhattan the city out here
yeah.
in the five boroughs, anytime I see anyone out in the city and they're wearing those big bubble jackets, or these heavy coats, and it's like 50 degrees, I just assume they're not from around here. I just like, yeah, you're
Exactly.
probably from the West Coast somewhere.
Yes,
Not that cold.
that's what I'm
Not that
saying.
cold.
In Las Vegas, we'd have like 45 degrees and you'd see people in gloves. And you're like, gloves? What? And the big jackets. But again, like you're used to all the heat and your blood thins. And so that's the way it goes. But anyway, reminder, we are an Odyssey Sports Original podcast covering the Raiders. Make sure you subscribe to the show wherever you get your audio, rate and review, if you will, as well. If you're watching us on video, you got to thank the good folks at BetUS. And again, we have to remind you of that great offer, 150% sign up bonus. Yeah, go sign up. Tell them you know Mo. Tell them you know Scott. Use the code YouTube150. That's YouTube150. You get 150% sign up bonus up to $2,000. Not only that, they're going to give you 125% on your second and third deposit up to $2,000. We certainly appreciate their support of Silver and Black today and everything they do. And you got to go there. I did well this week, Mo. Not only on the NFL, our backdoor cover on the Raiders, right? And the over on Aiden O'Connell prop bet as well. The over on Brock Bowers was good. Excuse me. And I won on my UNLV Rebels. And that was great too, because UNLV plays one game and they're in the playoffs if they beat Boise State. I can't believe I'm saying that. I never thought in my entire life would I say that. So there you go. But I bet it at BetUS. Had somebody comment that not to go there, that they can't get there. They bet there and couldn't get their money out. That's BS. I've bet all season and taken money out, no problems. So I'm not sure where that came from. But anyway, Mo, how did you do? You did well this week again, did you not?
Split even on the public NFL bets. Kickers did not come through for me this
Oh,
past
it was a
weekend.
bad kicking weekend.
The over on the Raiders game probably hits if the Chiefs and the Raiders kickers get to have their act together.
Yeah.
The Ravens, Justin Tucker, I don't know what's going on with him. He missed 3 kicks Sunday.
Yeah.
In
I think he's just
in the
done.
4 p.m. slot.
He's a Hall
I
of
don't know.
Famer. He's a Hall of Famer. He's going to be in the Hall of Fame. But I just think he's done. I don't know what happened.
And I don't know what it. I guess I can't really blame the weather. Was it that cold in Kansas City? Was it that cold in Baltimore that there was no inclement weather? It wasn't like a snowstorm or anything. So no excuses for these kickers. The only bets I lost were the bets where the kickers didn't perform well, and I'm like, now I have to account for kickers shanking kicks from 30, 40 yards. Now again, Daniel Carlson missed 350+ yards, so I'm not really hard on Daniel Carlson. The Raiders have to punch those in for 6 points instead of settling for 3. But Justin Tucker, man, make your kicks.
Or maybe go for it on some of those 4th and 1s. Well, maybe. They were running the ball pretty good. That's what I couldn't understand. I think 2 of those they could have gone. They were 4th and 1, 4th and 2. You're 2 and 9 at the time. Why not? Yeah, let's go. It's easy for me to say. It's not my job. So, right. Speaking of jobs, some people think the Raiders were jobbed by the NFL officials again, though. Now, I'm going to do this discussion 2 ways because I want to separate a couple things here. Because I don't think that let me say this up front. I do think the Chiefs, I think there's a lot of evidence to show that the Chiefs, just like Tom Brady used to and Patrick Mahomes, get favorable calls from the officials. I'm not saying cheating or it's fixed or it's scripted. You people who are into the scripted things, sorry, I can't go there. But I do think they get calls, just like in baseball. Certain hitters would not get calls. Certain pitchers, I should say, get calls because they're dialed in and they're freaking amazing. And so if you're Roger Clemens, you got calls. As good as you were, you also got calls. This situation with the Raiders, the clock is stopped. They spike the ball. They're getting up to the line. And the game ends where the ball is centered and Aiden O'Connell doesn't know it's coming, doesn't see it, and the ball's fumbled and the Chiefs recover it. Now, what came before that, Raiders coaches, some Raiders players said that there's a whistle. The flag went up and that it was a false start call, right? False start call. So that's a dead ball foul. So there shouldn't have been a fumble. Now, the NFL clarified. Vic Tafer over at The Athletic, thank goodness there's a journalist who asked, right? He asked the league for a statement on it, and the league said, listen, if the clock was running, then the call would have been a dead ball. It would have been a false start, and they would have retained the ball. But because the clock was stopped, the rule states that on a play like that the ball is actually still live. So it's not a dead ball. It's a live ball foul. So that explains it. The issue here, Mo, is even let's take outside the argument because there's going to be people who argue both ways, is that the impression around the league is that the Chiefs get favorable calls. This is not something that's going to quelch that. This is something that's going to inflame it because it always seems to be happening around the Chiefs.
It does. I compare it to if you watch the NBA, I know you don't watch a lot of NBA, Scott, but superstar players always get the whistle.
Yes.
Whereas you see the same play from an average player or bench player, they don't get the same whistle. In this case, the NFL, if you read the letter of the law, you laid it out perfectly. The clock, it's not a dead ball foul. What I will say is that you can argue it either way. I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole because there are people that no matter what happens, they're going to say it's rigged. And I say, if you think it's rigged, why watch?
I agree.
If I think something's rigged, I'm not going to watch it because if I truly think it's rigged, then what's the
point? The Tyson
right?
Paul fight, that was rigged. And I watched it. I shouldn't have, but I watched it.
But I'm not going to even get to litigating the rule book and the call. I want to get into why it happened. Right? That's what I want to talk about.
I agree.
We can talk about refs and calls all day, but I don't really care about that. I care about why this happened.
Right.
And when I look at Scott and Aiden O'Connell said it's his fault because a lot of people want to blame JPJ. And I did get on the Bleacher Report live stream and I said, well, a lot of people said it was a rookie mistake by JPJ. One of the people in the audience in the chat, Dev Royal, shout out to Dev Royal, pointed out that it was Dylan Parham who tapped JPJ to let him know to snap the football. Now, I also looked on Twitter because I looked at this from many different angles. And what I arrived at is Aiden O'Connell was right in taking responsibility for that mishap. Because if you watch Dan Orlovsky's Twitter feed, he had a video out. And he's a former NFL quarterback. A lot of people want to make fun of him because he wasn't that good, but still an NFL quarterback and knows how these things work. The guard looks back at the quarterback for the cue to tap the center to snap the football. And a lot of times he said that he pointed out that when a quarterback kicks his leg, that's a signal for something to let the guard know, hey, snap the football. And then he'll tap the center to snap the football. In this case, you saw Aiden O'Connell kind of kick his leg up. This is like a cadence when you're on the road because you can't hear. So you have to go by, certain signals at the line of scrimmage pre-snap. You saw the kicking of the leg from Aiden O'Connell during the game. But on that last offensive drive, Aiden O'Connell claps his hands. And I think what Dan Orlovsky was saying was when a quarterback claps his hands like that, it's kind of synonymous with the kicking of the leg, like snap the ball. We don't have a lot of time, snap the ball. And if you remember, the play clock was running down. So Aiden O'Connell's clapping his hands to snap the ball. Dylan Parham looks back at Aiden O'Connell. He sees that. He also probably hears it a little bit, taps Jackson Powers-Johnson to snap the ball. The ball gets snapped, but Aiden O'Connell's not looking because he's clapping his hands to hurry up, not necessarily to snap the football. And I think that's the mental error which caused that miscommunication.
Yeah, 100%. I agree. And you walked through it. And then you watch Aiden O'Connell at the press conference after the game. He did take full responsibility, but he went beyond that. He said, "Hey, look, when you clap, that means snap the ball.
Snap
That's
the ball.
we've always known that." And he said, "But I made the mistake and I was thinking hurry up, and I clapped." It was just a
Yep,
moment
exactly.
of I think him trying to get his team moving, because you're right,
Right,
the play clock was at like 4 or 3, something like that. And so
right,
he claps and the ball comes and he said he was looking down the line to make sure everybody was set.
right,
So he was thinking he was doing the right thing, but the clap snapped the ball,
right,
and there you go. And again, this is the kind of thing that just happens, right? It seems
right.
to happen to teams. Look, Aiden O'Connell had a great day, but it seems to happen to teams that are in that cycle of just making mental errors when they shouldn't. Okay? And this is what happens. I think this is what separates good teams from bad. I watched almost every game yesterday or Sunday in the NFL, and I saw so many plays like this where teams, you saw Carolina go into overtime, right? And they fumbled. Chuba Hubbard fumbles the ball. They had other plays where they could have won. And you see these games, you see the Bengals like come out and score, 38 points, lose because they can't execute on defense. Like you just see these, and then you watch the Buffalo Bills against the San Francisco 49ers in that snow game, and you see how they execute. And this is the difference, because everybody in the NFL, believe it or not, even players that are marginal, they're talented, man. I mean, there's a lot of talent out there, and the Raiders have a lot of talent. But putting it together, being on the same page, being disciplined enough, and putting that all together is what separates a team that's 2-10 and a team that's 500 or a team that's in the upper echelon. Yes, they have to have talent, but Mo, that is kind of the secret ingredient a lot of people don't necessarily, I think, recognize.
It's those mental errors, Scott, that can mean the difference between a win and a loss. In that case, it was the difference between a win and a loss for the Raiders. As I said, I think it was more of a natural reaction for Aiden
Mhm.
O'Connell to clap and say, "Let's go, let's go, let's go," forgetting that that also is the indication to snap the football because you know you say, well, he hadn't played for about a month because he was on IR. He gets back into action. Doesn't look rusty, of course, from the box score, but from that standpoint, he just forgot about the cadence of the moment, and that's what caused the botch at the end of the game. Now it also happens to good teams at times. You also see good
Sure.
teams make some mental errors and make mistakes. It happens. These players are also human. While they can do things you and I can't do, a lot of us can't do. They also make mistakes.
Mhm.
They're prone to error as well. And again, uh, right or wrong, for fair or not, whether you want to call it fair or not, that's the difference in a lot of these football games, especially when you get to this part of the year, post Thanksgiving, where teams are jockeying for playoff position. Every yard counts, every penalty counts, every completion, every incompletion. It all adds up.
Yeah.
And as you said, Scott, at this point, the cream rises to the top, and you see the best teams execute, and you see the bad teams follow in those big situations.
Yeah, and you talk about too the idea right there, because even O'Connell talked about in the press conference. He said, "Hey, if we keep," their plan was on that down to throw the ball away. Fourth down, they're able to kick the field goal, right? So that was the plan that came in from the sideline. And you say, well, geez, if they would have just held the ball, they would have won the game. Yes, possibly, but even again, I know they were over 50 yards, like you said, but Carlson's missed more kicks lately. So you just don't know what happens. I hate leaving it to kickers. Nothing against kickers. I rather, if I'm a team, I rather win scoring 6 points or 7
Yeah.
points. And but you look at that too. I can easily go back to, oh, the Raiders lost the game because of the fumble. Well, yeah, but at the same time, they also lost the game because they were 3 of 12 on third down conversions. Like they couldn't get big third downs. And in the NFL, if you can't convert on third downs, you don't win. I mean, you look through the stats, it's just true. Mo, you cover the league, you know this. You can't if you don't convert on third down, at least consistently, you're not going to score points and you're not going to win football games. It's just very rarely does that happen. So, go ahead.
And I was going to say really quick, and that's why you settle for 50 plus yard field goals. When you
Yes.
can't convert on third down, your drive stalls, then you have to rely on your kicker to kick those 50+ yards. So yeah, I know a lot of people want to blame Daniel Carlson. He's paid to make those kicks. He has made kicks like that in the past. But the Raiders also have to sustain drives or keep drives going and score 6 points. You know the old saying, Scott, you're not going to beat quality football teams or many football teams settling for 3 and not getting 6. So there are many factors that go into it. I went through the whole last sequence of, why I think it happened. And Dan Orlovsky, again, I advise you, check out his Twitter feed. He breaks it down very clearly. The cadence on the road, the signs that you see out there when you see the guard tap the center. It's a whole set of reactions.
Yes.
One person is reacting to another person's action, and then the other person acts on the other person's action. So there's a lot that goes into this, and if one thing is out of place, it can all go downhill.
Yeah, a lot of former NFL quarterbacks actually talked about it too. I even heard Kurt Warner talk about it. So there's a lot of it, but the Orlovsky one's a good one. I think Chase Daniel has a video as well where you can see that too, where they talk through just all the different, and they show a bunch of examples of that tap from the guard and how the sequence goes. So good stuff to watch. All right. Well, there you go. There's the call. But again, that goes back to, like you talked about, third down. You look, I'm not making excuses for Daniel Carlson, but if you put a player in a tough spot, it makes it more difficult for him to help you out. And that's what happened, because the Raiders, even though they ran the ball better, Mo, they haven't been able to run the ball all season. Again, they're last in the NFL with 78.1 yards a game. The next worst team is the Cowboys at 85. So again, if they're running the ball better, they're converting third downs because they have shorter third down. Yeah, it all connects. That's just what happens during a tough season. All right. We're going to step aside. When we come back, it's time for your voice. We're going to get to the Raider Nation mailbag. We got a lot of calls to get to, so we're going to get through them and answer any of the questions, give you our comments based on your comments. And we do that all next here on Silver and Black Today, an Odyssey Sports original podcast covering the Raiders. Also, our video, if you're watching us, hello, brought to you by the great folks at BetUS. Don't go anywhere.
Enough of hearing us talk about the Raiders. It's time to hear from you.
Any Oakland Raider fan, Las Vegas Raider fan, stand up.
On this edition of the Raider Nation Mailbag.
That black hole rocking and rolling.
Don't be a wallflower. Be a part of the show. Leave your question or message by calling 702-900-7869. That's 702-900-7869. Or drop us an email at mail@silverandblacktoday.com.
All right, we're back. Dude, that Sunday night game, Mo Moton, Scott Gulbransen, by the way, Silver and Black Today, Odyssey Sports, original podcast. Rate, review, subscribe. Thank you so much. And our video brought to you by the folks at BetUS. Yes, we love them. That game against the Bills, but that, not only that, the Josh Allen game where he became the first quarterback in NFL history. You ready for this? To throw a touchdown pass, to run a touchdown, and to catch a touchdown pass. Did you see this, man? That was so far to me, the best play of the year. What do you think?
You know who was involved in that play, right, Scott?
Who?
Former Raider, Amari Cooper.
Oh, Amari Cooper. Where was he? Was that Amari who caught the ball?
Amari Cooper had a heads up. We see the Chiefs do this a lot. The catch and lateral.
The catch and lateral. What a catch, though. He made a one-handed catch in the snow.
Yeah, I mean, as we said, great teams do great things. And while the Chiefs aren't playing, in my opinion, the Chiefs aren't playing good football right now.
Nope. The
Bills are just on another level. By the way, shout out to everyone, all the people who had Josh Allen on their fantasy team. I'm sure they're happy today. Because I think it was credited he was credited for 2 touchdowns on one play, I believe.
Yes.
If you have the sleeper app, it counted as 2 touchdowns. So
that's exactly.
You got a little bonus on your fantasy team lineup.
Yes. That's what blew my mind, because I was sitting there watching it with some guys that are in a league that I'm in here, a sleeper league, and the guy started saying, "You have," because I have Allen in my league. And he's like, I said, well, I think it's a rushing touchdown. He's like, no, look at sleeper. Like, it's giving you 2 touchdowns for the same play. And I said, you're kidding me. And I looked at it and I'm like, holy crap. And then they talked about it on TV. Chris Collinsworth was talking about it. So amazing, but what a play, man. Just what an athlete.
This is why you take a chance on a dynamic quarterback. Again, this is no slight against Aidan O'Connell. I'm not using that to take a shot at Aidan O'Connell, but
Of course not.
this is why if you can get a quarterback who just either A, doesn't look like any other quarterback in the league, or can do some things that most quarterbacks can't do, you go for it. Because you're gonna get those spectacular plays like that. Now the Bills didn't need it to beat the 49ers once Christian McCaffrey went down, but you're going to see more plays, a lot more plays like that out of Josh Allen, because he's a young quarterback and he still's got a lot of, if he wants to, he's got a lot of years left. You're going to see more plays, spectacular plays like that, and that could be the difference in a close game between a win and a loss in the regular season for the number 1 seed, a win and a loss in the playoffs, a crucial matchup. It's just fun to see great players do great things on the football field.
It is. And before people start saying, well, look at the Lions, Jared Goff. Jared Goff is a good quarterback. I mean, do you not remember where he was drafted? And do you not remember what he did even with the Rams? Like, come on. But this is why, and I know, and I'm right now, I'm in the Shedeur Sanders camp if the Raiders can get there, right? So we'll see. He's dynamic. Well, he won't like that. No, you got to go for that talent, man. It's just incredible. So we'll see. But it all depends. We'll see where the Giants. There's a lot of teams who want quarterbacks again because they understand the equation. You don't have one. I saw a lot of people. Oh well, what Travis Hunter? Because John Gruden said he's like the GOAT. He's like, what's this? So we got to do this. We got to do no. Get the quarterback. Remember Baldy? Get the quarterback. Baldy's pretty good. He knows what he's talking about. Okay, let's get to the calls now. First up is Brian out in frigid Iowa. Here's Brian.
Hey, Scott and Mo. This is Bryce from Iowa.
I get the names wrong.
It's only about 15 minutes after the final whistle of the game on Friday night. And can't help but think that nothing but bad news for Raider Nation. Obviously the tank is on, and, as much as you want that number 1 overall pick, maybe that's the only silver lining out of this, but you want to beat the Kansas City Chiefs in Arrowhead. You want to win that game, and you had opportunities to do it. I think just bad news upon bad news, at least in terms of what our coaching situation looks like, is I think the Raiders brass looks at a game like tonight and says, you know what? They continue to play hard for AP. We're in ball games. We're doing just enough to be able to be competitive. If only we had, Wilkins healthy. If only we had Epps healthy. If only we had a starting quarterback. If only we had X, Y, and Z. You're going to hear those excuses, and I can't help but look at a game like tonight, and that's going to help AP make his case that, we were in it to the last second, and we had a rookie center make a mistake. It's just that you can't pin that on AP. You got to pin that on the center. It's just little things like that. So to me, that's the bad news. Is you look at a game like tonight, even though AP makes that decision to call a timeout to put his field goal team back on the field. And I'm not saying that was the right or wrong call. I'm not second guessing that. What I'm second guessing is you have to make that timeout to do it. If it's third down and you don't even make another single yard, which they didn't on that third down. And hats off to the Chiefs for making great plays with those tip passes on that drive. But as soon as fourth down rolls around, you need to have a decision made and go with that decision. You either punt, you go for it, you kick your field goal. You do not call a timeout in that instance. And I know ultimately that's not what lost the game, but that's what separates truly your good coaches from the rest of the field. I don't know that Andy Reid would have done that. I don't know that he would have called that timeout to make a different decision. I don't know. But I just see this as continued bad news not only did we lose to the Chiefs, but I think this is going to be a game that, again, the brass is just going to look back and say, well, AP has got his team playing hard. And
oh, there you go. Bryce got cut off because he went too long, but that's okay. Bryce, thank you, man. I appreciate it. Calling in from Iowa. And I agree. I mean, you have to be decisive as a head coach. You have to be a leader. It doesn't mean you don't take time when it's a critical part of the game. That was not that issue. To your point, you should be ready to go on that one. And injuries, we keep hearing about the injury thing, Mo. The what ifs. Well, what if he made 3 field goals? Then they would have won too. I mean, you could do that all day long with a million scenarios.
Scott, if I hit this 20,000 parlay, this plus 20,000 parlay, I'd be a millionaire right now, Scott. What about that? What if,
Yeah.
No, but seriously though, Bryce, great call, because I talked about this on my Bleacher Report live after the game. I said what was maddening to me, while it wasn't the deciding moment of this football game, was the fact that Antonio Pierce pulls his punt unit off the field and puts his field goal unit onto the field. As Bryce pointed out, you make that decision before you put any unit on the field, and you go with that decision so you don't have to burn a timeout. So, Scott, remember when I talked about the game clock was running, which is why Aiden O'Connell was clapping his hands to hurry up? If the Raiders have another timeout in the back pocket, you could just simply, just call timeout. You don't gotta rush. You don't have to clap Aiden. You don't have to hurry up. Just call the timeout. Yep. But they burn a timeout just to put the right unit on the field. And it just, again, it wasn't the reason they lost, but it's the reason why things were out of whack on that last sequence and why things seemed hurried. You have that extra timeout in your back pocket. You could slow things down. You don't have to rush. You can take it. You can pace yourself. But because you were indecisive in that moment, now you burn an extra timeout. Now you go into a hurry-up situation.
And for those of you that tell me that Antonio Pierce deserves another season because of injuries and this, and they didn't get him a quarterback, and they did, watch that. Again, that has nothing to do with injuries. That has nothing to do with the quarterback. That has to deal with game management and coaching. Okay? So that's why, in my book, it's a one and done. And look, again, I give him all the credit in the world for keeping this team motivated, keeping them. They clearly like him. You can like someone. I like Antonio Pierce. I got no problem with him as a person, as a coach, motivational coach. I think he got elevated too quickly. So we'll see. But I think these situations, again, this was week 13, not week 2, not week 3, although we saw it there and we saw it in the preseason, the same kind of stuff. And it has not gotten better. And having Marvin Lewis and Tom Coughlin there has not helped that either. Now, Norv Turner, has he helped Scott Turner? Maybe. I don't know. But they've gotten better over the course of 2 weeks. But they were also at rock bottom. So got to keep that in perspective. But Bryce, good call. Appreciate it, man. All right, now we're going out to our good buddy, longtime listener, Gary Harkenreader.
Hey, Scott. Gary Harkenreader from the Poconos. I wasn't going to watch this game. I was expecting a blowout. But, you're a fan. If you're a fan, you're a fan no matter what. So I watched the game. And with all this losing streak going on, and watching the games, I really don't like who I become. But I watched it anyway. And there was a lot of talking points with this game after it was over. However, I'm going to focus on something positive, and on that fact that the Raiders didn't quit. And it appears to me that Pierce hasn't lost the locker room. So maybe, just maybe, that dumpster fire is only smoldering now. So you guys take care. Thanks for everything you do. Bye-bye.
Gary's always succinct, but very meaningful. So Gary, good stuff. And yeah, again, see, this is where, find the positive. See, Gary knows what he's doing. You got to love it. But I understand what he's saying. And we've said this the whole show, right, Mo, which is this team has not quit on Antonio Pierce. You can never accuse him of losing the locker room, right? Which is good. Is that enough to keep your job? I don't think so. But you got to give him credit, but you also got to give the players credit because, again, they're playing for jobs. They're playing if they want to stay in Las Vegas. They're playing for their highlight reel if they're moving on somewhere. So those guys are all motivated and they're playing as well as they can together.
So basically what the Raiders have is a it's a functional, smoldering silver and black dumpster fire. It's not a dumpster fire on the verge of explosion,
Right.
as a locker room would be if it were, near mutiny. But it's smoldering, but it's not, one
Right.
you should think it's gonna just erupt like a volcano. You gotta look at the positive side. Glass half full. I like glass half full, Gary Harker reader.
Yes,
Enjoyed that call.
I do. Very good stuff. All right, now we go out to Hawaii for our buddy MDM. Here he is. Oops. I can press the right button.
Hey, aloha, Scott and Mo. Calling you, sir, from Hawaii. This is MDM. Little raw on this call. Game just ended, but I have to say a couple quick things. One, got to give a lot of props to the Turners, man. Norv and Scott, the offense is just performing at such a higher level right now that, I think we need new coaching staff, but I don't know if there's a way that they would somehow be a part of that because they're doing great. Sincere McCormick. I've been rooting for this guy, hoping we would put him in much sooner as of last year. And he's just looking great. So I don't know what took us so long to put him in, but I got to give him a lot of props. And finally, one thing I didn't understand when the Raiders had the ball just outside of the 30, and I know that, Carlson's missed a couple field goals already, but how do you not kick the ball? I mean, there's like 15 seconds left. How much good can come out of that? We have no timeouts. I mean, maybe you get a quick play on the sidelines. I understand because he missed a few that, we want to get closer for him. But that is well inside his range. At that point in time, man, you got the ball, you roll the dice, you try to kick the damn field goal. If there's a bad snap or something, maybe, I don't know. But the bottom line is you got to kick that field goal. It's less than 50. Carlson's usually money. He had a bad game. That's when a guy like that gets a chance for redemption. Let's go ahead. Let's win this thing. And I think by trying to run that extra play with panic or with no timeouts, not a lot of time, you saw what a mess that was. And unfortunately, I think that kind of seals Antonio Pierce's fate with the team. We kept him last year because he beat KC. And the end of that game, he was way too disorganized. And I just feel bad for them because honestly, the Raiders played a great game, better than I thought they would. Oh, and props to Bowers. And, as much as I had wanted the Raiders to get a high pick and get a quarterback, all that went out the window. I wanted to beat the Chiefs. That was the one game in Arrowhead, Thanksgiving. We got to win that game. I was thinking Janikowski way back in the day when he made that field goal against the Chiefs to win the game. Anyways, tough game. Hope you guys had a great Thanksgiving. Aloha.
Aloha to you as well, MDM. Thanks for the call there. Mo, he brings up a good point because if you line up, because you snap the ball and you clocked it, so you stop the clock. If you run the field goal unit out there and try the kick, and let's say there's a botched snap, it's only third down, right? So then you have fourth down. You could actually try it again. You see a lot of teams do to kick the field goal on third down when it's under 20 seconds. Is that another example of a coaching thing, or what would you have done in that situation?
In that situation, as MDM said, I understand Carlson missed multiple kicks in that game, but as I pointed out, those kicks were from plus 50 yards.
Yeah.
This is way closer than those missed kicks. So there was no reason to be super scared about what if he misses this kick. It's I don't want to call it a chip shot again, but as MDM said, well within his range. I wouldn't have worried about that. I probably would have kicked the field goal there, knowing that if there's an issue, because we've seen this, right?
Yeah.
We've seen the Chiefs block a kick not too long ago with the Denver Broncos. Crazy things have happened in Chiefs games where they escape with a victory. And in my mind, I would be thinking, okay, let's kick the field goal. And if something wild happens outside of change of possession, if there's an issue, like you said, we get another shot to kick the field goal. All good. But I go back to my point that I made from the first call from Bryce in Iowa, right? If Antonio Pierce doesn't burn the timeout to take his punt unit off and put his field goal unit back on, you don't have to hurry in that situation, right? You could just call the timeout, slow things down, regather yourself, organize things, and you're not running around with your hair on fire trying to get the snap off and beat the game clock. That's a whole different conversation. Getting back to what MDM said, though, they played well to win that football game. And I'll say this again, whether you're in favor of the tank or not, that's the game you want to see them win. I think Bryce also from Iowa said this, is that you want to see them win that football game. And watching that game from start to finish, not just because it's my job, because I'm still interested in the Raiders and what they do, even at 2 wins. It was good to see Chiefs fans squirm a bit. I had some fun with some Chiefs fans online, but that's the game they should have won. And whether you want to blame it on Aiden O'Connell or Antonio Pierce, I think the organization has to look at that game and say, okay, what went wrong and how can we fix that so that we don't have these situations, because the Raiders are competing now, but they have to learn how to win football games. And I think the theme of this show, Scott, is bad teams find ways to lose and good teams find ways to win. And in that situation, whether you second guess them kicking the field goal or not on 3rd down or what they did, the Raiders found a way to lose. And I hate to say this, I really do, Scott, but once the Raiders got inside field goal range, I'm thinking, what could go wrong here? Because I know something's going to go wrong. I'm thinking in my head, what wild thing is going to happen and how the Chiefs going to get out of this one? Because clearly the Raiders should win this football game. They're in field goal range. They have it right in front of them. What is going to go wrong for the Raiders for them to lose it? And lo and behold, you get the miscommunication. Clock runs out. Chiefs gain possession. They win the football game. And I'm like, see, I just felt like it was going to happen.
Well, and I think that it's a case too where decisions are made. And listen, again, you can't take anything. I'm sorry, you cannot take a thing away from the players on the team, on the Raiders.
No,
I think
absolutely
they did
not.
everything they could to win that game. And this is where coaching decisions and things like that happen. Now, Aiden O'Connell had the clap issue, the communication issue. That's fine. I don't blame him for the loss because, again, as MDM brought up, and actually, I got to give MDM credit, Mo, because I completely didn't even think about that. Because we were talking about the call, the flag, and all that kind of stuff. And so I got distracted. And so, again, I'm always marveled by our listeners and our callers and our viewers because they always have great points and they make this show better. So that's why we do the segment. So thank you. But definitely something to think about. Not a lot of people talking about that. So maybe they will after they watch the show. Good stuff. MDM, thank you, man. All right, now we're going behind bars. It's Pastor Mike behind bars.
Scott, Mo, Pastor Mike behind bars. Hope you guys are doing well. Hope you had a good Thanksgiving. Had not quite a day to digest this whole thing that happened yesterday. Let me tell you this. I feel like I was impressed with the way the Raiders came out. I thought, this could be a blowout, but they came with the physicality and the aggression. Offensive play calling looked great. And, if it wasn't for Daniel Carlson missing those 3 field goals, we're thinking a different outcome, right? And then it gets down to the last play of the game. Now, as far as I'm concerned, the official was blowing the play dead, should have been dead, whether it was the right call or not. It should have been dead. But that's beside the point. My issue is this with AP. He said that they were there, 3rd down, they were running that one play to throw it out of bounds, and then they were going to kick the field goal. Why in the world, with 15 seconds left, would you run one more play out of the shotgun? There's no reason to do that. Just line up and kick the stinking field goal. It's like Mahomes is not. I know he's done it in 13 seconds left, but man, you pooch the kickoff and they run around. He has maybe 7, 8, maybe 6 seconds left to try it, and then he has to do Hail Mary. So it didn't make sense to me. I thought for a moment, for a little bit, okay, maybe we keep AT and maybe Scorville Turner, these guys will, run the offense. Okay, maybe that'll work. But the more I think about it, the more I think he's got to go. There's just too many bonehead, decisions that he's made. By now he should have this thing down, and especially that last play. I'm disappointed because I felt like I was sold the bill of goods with the physicality, pain, and everything else, that AP was preaching. I felt like there'd be a culture change. I'm a Raider fan from the 70s. Okay, the See Hands game was the game that convinced me to be a Raider fan, and I thought we were going to get that culture back, but it just hasn't translated. So now it's time to move on, and we'll see if they get a top pick. We'll see what happens the rest of the way out. Hope you guys have a great day. We'll talk to you soon. Raiders.
There you go, Pastor Mike, following in the footsteps of MDM there. Same situation with the field goal. But the last thing he mentioned, Mo, and I want to get your comments on this because we talked about this a couple of weeks ago about Raider culture, right? And he encapsulated that there. Oh, I see your hands. That's when I became a fan. But that's what I thought we were getting back. And what it comes down to is, although they had badasses and they were tough and they, all that and the physical, all that, it was a winning culture. And that's what it comes down to. I don't care if he's singing Yankee Doodle Dandy. If the guy wins, I don't care if he says golly gosh, and darn, and I'll be. I don't care if he's a hokey dude. If they win, that's the culture you want. That the Raider culture, all the other flavor is great. But at the end of the day, it goes back to a statement that's said every day from every Raider fan in the world. But I think people miss the meaning sometimes, which is just win, right?
So I can we amend the ill intent, violence, physicality, pain to ill intent, violence, physicality, pain, and winning? Like that's how. Can we just add the winning part in there? Like all that stuff is cool and fun and tough guy and person, great, right? But can we just get the winning part in there, because that's what matters most, the winning part.
It's all about.
But I want to get to part. I want to get to part of the call there.
Pastor Mike
said that he talked about basically the coaching mishap there. So he looked at it from another angle of, why are you even running a play to throw it out of bounds? And that was also talked about. So Pastor Mike, that's a good comment.
And look what happened.
And you see what happened. And I think it was just scared to death of, and Pastor Mike kind of alluded to this, just scared to death of what's going to happen if you give Patrick Mahomes even a little bit of time. So on Sunday, we watched the Tampa Bay Buccaneers go down the field in 30 seconds. Now, the Chiefs would have had way less time than that. So it would have basically had to have been a miracle play. Now, again, we've seen the Chiefs escape some of these games with some miracle plays, but you have to think if you give Patrick Mahomes less than 10 seconds with the way the defense played on Friday, that you can close the game out. I agree with Pastor Mike here. Why even mess around? And that's why I was on the side of just kick the field goal on third down, because then you can cover for your own mistake. Forget about the Chiefs. They're not going to have a lot of time. Cover yourself, so just in case you have a mishap on the third down, you have a re-kick on fourth down. So maybe he's just overthinking in that situation, or just too afraid of what Patrick Mahomes can do a little bit of time. But why even just kick, as MDM said, just kick the freaking field goal.
Right. But I will say this too. Patrick Mahomes might not be having his best season, but he factored in the game. He factored in the game there, because if that's why you were doing what you were doing, well, we didn't. Now, nobody asked the question at the press conference, and I don't blame anybody, because again, this is a point that I got lost in everything else. So credit to everybody else. But if I asked the question, I would, in retrospect, I'd say, hey, coach, you have it there on third down. Why not just kick it there and see what the answer is? And he might have said, well, we didn't want to give the ball back. Patrick Mahomes, we know what he can do. Okay, great. So if that's the case, then you get it. But at the same time, it shows you what a dynamic quarterback does to a football game, right? But again, it's a situation where these are the decisions that go one way or the other and can have a massive impact.
And I get that. I would understand more. Now, he didn't say this. Now, he didn't.
No, we're just assuming.
But we're saying if that was in his line of thought, his train of thought,
right?
You also have to factor in the context. The Chiefs only scored 19 points.
Right.
Now, the Pacers were just going up and down the field, and it was like 45, 40. And then I can make the case for why you would think
your defense isn't stopping anybody. You don't want to put them back on the field. Yeah, I get it.
But for the most part, the Raiders did pretty good considering the players, the second and third stringers they have on the field. They did pretty well defensively. So what are you afraid of Patrick Mahomes in 10 seconds or less? 10 seconds or fewer left on the clock. Just worry about your own operation and win the football game. So if he was factoring Patrick Mahomes in time, then he definitely overthought it. But again, it goes back to my point where he should have he shouldn't have burned the timeout.
Yeah,
because
I
then
agree.
you would
All
have
right,
given yourself comfort there.
Pastor Mike, thanks, and thanks for the work you do. Here we go. Now we're going out to Virginia, and we got Ron in Virginia.
Hey, Scott, Mo. Hey, this is Ron from Virginia. Like I said, I'm calling in. Just watched the game, and yeah, Scott, I'm using my inside voice, as Mo said. The last watched the game. Guys, they really did good, man. They really put in a lot of effort. Like I said, unfortunately, the Raiders do what the Raiders do. But it was overall pretty much the team showed up. So this people talking about the Raiders are tanking, that's ridiculous, man. Antonio Pierce is playing for his job. He's coaching for his job, I should say. But anyway, the offense looked good, the defense looked good, but the one aspect of the game that is reliable fell apart, special teams. Daniel Carson is usually reliable, missing field goals, but that's just what the Raiders do. But anyway, I just want to say I still believe that the Raiders should go in a different direction other than Pierce, like I said, but get somebody in, like I said, because I know hopefully they'll draft another quarterback. Even though as great as O'Connell played, I still think he's a career backup. But the guy, he showed some moxie. He did a good job. But I would hold on to him if I was the Raiders. But he just shows you what a decent offensive coordinator could do. I guess he should have never been hired in the first place. So you bring somebody in that can groom a rookie quarterback, which is probably what they're going to do. But I'm a firm believer that if you drafting quarterbacks, you draft it until you get it right. I mean, somebody might fall. Even if you might pick up Sanders, just say in the first round, there's another guy who drops that you think is better than your backup. You pick him up anyway. What the heck? You know, what do you have to lose? You might find a gem. But anyway, just wanted to let you guys know, a great show. Hope you guys enjoyed your Thanksgiving. Had a great Thanksgiving. A belated happy birthday to you, Scott, as well. And just tell me what you guys think. Take care. Go Raiders.
All right, there's Ron in Virginia. Thanks, Ron. We appreciate the well wishes as well, and we appreciate you calling into the show. I agree with everything he said. Ron's I think dead on with all of that. So, Mo, anything to add there?
Ron leads me into the discussion I had on Twitter on, I think it was Sunday evening. Responded to the Raider Ramble on Twitter. They had a post basically saying is, after watching Aiden O'Connell against the Chiefs, why not, someone suggested, why not just run it back with Aiden O'Connell, draft Travis Hunter? So Ron's call kind of connects to that sentiment. Now I agree with Ron on this one. And I'll offer this thought. You don't make a decision like that, a big decision like that on your quarterback situation after one game. If you didn't think Aiden O'Connell was a franchise guy before the Chiefs game, one game shouldn't swing your opinion one way or the other.
Right.
Because you make your decision based on the totality of a person's resume. You don't make your decision off of one game. Now, Aiden O'Connell, as I said, has been dealt a tough hand, a bad hand, 2 years in the league. I'm not disputing that. What I am saying, though, and I agree with Ron on this one, you draft a quarterback until you are sure or you highly think that this is the guy to lead your franchise in the offense. If there's any doubt, you keep drafting the quarterback. Because we don't know how the season is going to end with the draft order. What if the Raiders have one of the top 2 picks in the draft? I'm not in a position to say Aiden O'Connell has done enough where I can say, yeah, I'm going to pass on Cam Ward and Shedeur Sanders for Aiden O'Connell. And again, that's no disrespect to Aiden O'Connell.
Of course not.
But my decision is not going to be swayed off of one football game. Because let me tell you, Scott and Ron, if Aiden O'Connell goes out there and stinks it up next week against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, those same people saying he should be the franchise guy will be crushing him. Yeah. So let's let it bake. Can we appreciate Aiden O'Connell's performance on Friday and still leave our minds open to what could happen during the offseason? The Raiders don't need to make that decision right now. We don't need to make that call right now to say who's going to be the guy in 2025.
Just like you don't make that decision on a coach either, by the way. Just to toss that in.
On one
just
game.
because
On one
just
game.
one game. I mean, there are a lot of people. He deserves a job. He beat the Chiefs. No. But anyway, but you're right. And I think the talk is about Travis Hunter. Oh, Travis Hunter. And John Gruden quotes out. By the way, John Gruden now works for Barstool, right? He's got a big deal with them. And so he's saying things. You're seeing a lot more Twitter activity from him and all this kind of stuff. So My guess is he's not writing most of it. He might be dictating it. He said, I drafted, I know Charles Woods, I know this, blah, blah, blah. And Travis Hunter's that kind of player. So now suddenly you're seeing fans say, well, we should just get Travis Hunter and then get a quarterback later. No. Sorry. No. But we move on. All right. Next is our man, Yan Dog. What does the dog have to say? Roar, roar, roar.
Hey, Scott, Mo, Yan Dog. Got done talking to Tarek. He was hoping that the Raiders could win. I was hoping they could lose. Because right now, at 2-10, I can smell roses right now. And I'll tell you what those roses are. Cam Ward. I don't want Shadir, or whatever you call him, Deion's son. Cam Ward is the real deal. He's similar to Lamar Jackson, Miami of Florida. I think we spoke about that months ago when I called your show, and I just letting you know that second or third pick is definitely right there for the picking. And I'll tell you, that would be great. And then if they could work on some issues with the offensive line, maybe a couple good receivers, we get all our people back from injuries. That would be a big, big boost. And I'm just hoping for the best, man, because when they took that lead at the end, I said, oh, no. I said, Christ, they're going to screw themselves out of a goddamn nice quarterback with their luck. So I love the Raiders. I've been a Raiders fan a long time, 56 years. And I'll tell you, I know Tarek's been a Raider fan for 40, but there's the big difference. It's 16 more years on that thing. And I'll be honest with you guys. I just hope that I don't care they go 2-15, like I said last week when I talked to you guys. But they don't have to tank it. They're going to lose by themselves. And I'll have to admit, though, O'Connell was a lot better than what they had. So, all right, guys, that's about it. And we'll talk to you guys later. Keep up the good work. You guys are the best. All right. Bye-bye now.
Yan Dog, thank you, my friend. I appreciate that very much. Mo appreciates it, I'm sure. Interesting. Listen, the Shedeur Sanders thing. Let's just talk about that because he brought it up.
Mm-hmm.
I get why some people don't like him, the personality. Okay? Right, Mo? Because I remember because I was a young guy when Deion came out of college. I always loved Deion. I remember my dad, he's so cocky. He's a great player, but he's so cocky. And some people don't like that. And I understand that. I'm not saying you have to like that. Okay? A lot of people said that about Joe Namath. They said, you can go back throughout history and find players like that. Pete Rose, who just passed away, right? Baseball. Shedeur Sanders, Yan Dog, here's the only thing I would ask you to do, and then you call us back next week and tell me what you think. Just go watch. Forget his personality. Just go watch tape of him on YouTube and watch him compared to Cam Ward. I like Cam Ward too. I'm not saying Cam Ward wouldn't be a good pick. But Shedeur Sanders, to me, Mo, from a pure talent, put all the stuff aside, pure talent-wise, I think is just a better, more prepared pro product.
Scott, I will say that we're going to have this debate if the Raiders have a top
2 pick,
3 pick. We're going to have this debate for months to come.
Yeah.
The Shedeur Sanders versus Cam Ward debate.
Yeah.
I'll say this. I'd be fine with either of the two.
I agree.
I would be fine with either quarterback. But I said this a month ago that a lot of the Shedeur Sanders pushback is his brashness.
Yes.
Some people call it cocky. Some people call it arrogant. It's not about I don't know how Yan Dog feels about his, demeanor. But I'm not speaking for Yan Dog, but I know a lot of people have messaged me privately saying that they don't think that his demeanor would jive well in Las Vegas. Not from a standpoint of it fits big personality Las Vegas, but how is that going to mesh with teammates in the locker room once you get around pros? That it can work around other college players, but once you get around older 30-year-old grown men, how are they going to take the Shedeur Sanders in the locker room? And that's what some people are worried about.
Yeah, and I think that's a little bit unfair because you don't know how somebody reacts until they're in situations. So you could say it's a quote unquote risk, right?
Yeah.
But boy, I think the upside is just too good. And again, it's weird to me because I have people telling me, the Raider way, Matuzak, all these guys that were crazy. But then there's a kid that's brash and you don't want him. Like it's just weird to me because he seems to fit the old Raider way, if you want to call it that, with the attitude, the swagger, right? It's in the freaking Autumn Wind poem, right? Like, why wouldn't you want that? It seems like a perfect fit. That's why the national media is talking about it so much, because it seems like the perfect fit. So we'll see. But I agree with you. I think either one would be a fine choice. So we'll see how it all rolls down. So Yandog, thanks, man. We appreciate it. All right, now we're going out to Anders in Oakland.
Hey, fellas, it's Anders from Oakland again, and I got to say I absolutely cracked up at Mo's analysis of who I am and what I do for a living. That is exactly what I do.
Exactly.
I advise CEOs and executives on
Thank you.
corporate and marketing strategy. So that was
Thank
pretty
you.
damn funny. But anyway, good call,
Thank
Mo.
you.
I was going to call and bitch and moan about our defensive coordinator, but I've decided to go back to Antonio Pierce. Here's my thing. The guy keeps these guys motivated. They work their asses off, and they go out and, I mean, they're a miserable record. They go against the Chiefs on the road, and they work their asses off, and they really, really work for the guy. And I admire that. The problem is, he has not grown 1 inch. I mean, he is the exact same coach with the exact same mistakes, making the exact same moves as he did in the very first game when he came in as the interim. He has shown absolutely no evolution. He just hasn't grown into the job. And, he was terrible in the preseason. He's been terrible this entire season with almost every decision he's made. You're just scratching your head. And he's just not getting any better. He's not growing. And to me, he has enough on the field or on the grass, as he likes to say now, to show that he is just not showing the growth that's necessary. You can't excuse him anymore for being, rookie head coach and, he's learning on the job and all of this other BS that people are saying. He's not learning. That's the big problem. He's not getting any better. Love to hear your thoughts about this. And again, you nailed it, Mo. I'll talk to you guys later. Bye.
Yeah, interesting call there, Anders. Thank you so much. And Mo, again, he's Nostradamus. He knew exactly what you did. He might even be able to tell you your address. No, I'm just kidding. But that idea, it reminds me of the Dirty Harry movie. Going back, Magnum Force. Dirty Harry Clint Eastwood has a very famous line in that movie where he says, a man has to know his limitations, right? And I think that he talked about it. Antonio Pierce, great motivator, guy you'd love to have on your coaching staff around that. And listen, I like Antonio Pierce. Like, I would love to see Antonio Pierce do well. But for every season, there's a time, there's a person, there's a situation. And, he was in a situation, they gave him the job. I don't blame him at all. And so I think you see the limitations, and it's nothing to get mad about. It's nothing to, hammer the guy about and to disparage him over. It just is what it is.
I think Anders nailed it. We've been talking all season about, what's ailing the Raiders this year. What are some of their problems? You can dig into the roster issues. You can dig into the injuries. You can dig into the quarterback decisions that I feel are highly questionable, whether Antonio Pierce had a prominent voice in making those decisions or not. But the game management, the use of timeouts, going for it on fourth down, it seems like more times than not, we're scratching our heads and thinking, why in that situation would you do this? Now, hindsight is always 20/20, but in a lot of times I find myself, and my neighbors can attest to this, talking out loud and saying, "What are you doing? What are you doing?" Like, it goes back to, and I hate to go back to it, but it goes back to the preseason when people kind of dismiss his misusage of those timeouts in that Vikings game. People say, well, he's learning on the job. It's going to happen. And we kind of understood that it's going to be a learning experience for him. But as I understand, at some point you want to see progress in the decision making and the
Mhm.
decision making progress. And what did we talk about today, Scott? Pulls his punt unit off the field to put his field goal unit on the field. Bryce talked about it from Iowa, right? That's a decision you should make before your team even takes the field. Why do you have to burn a timeout for that? Saying that we're gonna throw it away on third down just to kind of burn off some time on the clock, when you see the Chiefs escape these games with these miraculous finishes. Why not give yourself an extra down to get it right on a game-winning possession play?
Yeah.
Instead of worrying about what with Patrick Mahomes or what the Chiefs could do with the football. Again, look at the time on the clock. Look at the context of the game. Your defense has been playing well. I understand you want to give the Chiefs as little time as possible, but again, you have essentially two opportunities to win the football game, and you come away with a turnover and a hurry-up situation when it didn't have to be. So the game
Right.
management issues. Again, just the flow of football games just seems disjointed. The decisions on fourth down just seem misguided, even with the advisors on his staff. It's just not good enough, Scott, from a coaching standpoint.
Yeah, and I think all well said, so I won't add too much to it other than to say that the other situation here is if the Raiders go in the direction that most people believe they will and should, i.e. the young quarterback at the top of the first round, then you got to ask yourself, okay, even if you were willing to take another year and let Antonio Pierce learn on the job, okay, that happens, okay. But is that the situation you want to bring a quarterback in to say, hey, I'm going to bring you into this situation with this staff, and then if it doesn't go well, I'm going to fire him, and now you're going to have a second coach in your second year or maybe the middle of your first year? Not good. So you got to make that decision based on the sample size, which is why everybody wants to blame the Kingsbury thing. They wouldn't give him a 3-year deal. Part of that was, I believe, because Mark Davis, no matter what I think of the decision he made on Antonio Pierce, I think he realized and was smart enough, had people around him to say, hey, look, we're not giving Antonio Pierce a 5-year deal. We're going to give him a couple years, and that's it. And that's why there's not longevity built into a contract when somebody wants 3 years. Instead, it's only 2. So you get it. But anyway, great call. Thank you again, Anders, as always. Keep marketing out there. Next we go up. It's put on your seatbelts, put on your safety glasses. It's time for Jacob in Fresno.
Yeah. Gulbransen and many down Moton. This is Jacob from Fresno. What's up, guys? Wow. Okay, so before we do all this, so I just got to say, let's give flowers, Aiden O'Connell. Let's give flowers to Sincere McCormick. Let's give flowers, I guess, to Abdullah. Abdullah did pretty good. Trey Tucker did great. Jacoby Myers did great. Brock Bowers has superpowers. That guy did great. Robert Willis Spillane, that guy is incredible. I mean, all these players did incredible work. Jackson Powers Johnson, fantastic. Until we get to one point that, oh my goodness, what happened? There is no word. There is no amount of alliteration to talk about this perfunctory that just happened on the field. I do not understand it. And here's the thing I want to ask you guys about. Okay, I'm going to ask you 2 questions. I got a 2 for this week. Aiden O'Connell at the press conference, he said he clapped. He said he was calling for the ball and he wasn't ready for it. I looked at the replay. I checked it out. I watched it over and over and over and over and over and over again, guys. I don't see Aiden clapping his hands within 3 seconds of that ball being snapped. So I think Aiden O'Connell saw what happened, and he saw Jackson. He didn't want the nation to just unload on Jackson Powers Johnson. And I'm wondering what your guys' take is on that. Because when I'm watching it, maybe you guys should watch it. Watch it over. Tell me if I'm wrong, if I'm seeing this wrong. But I didn't see Aiden clapping, and then the ball gets snapped. I think Jackson heard something that didn't happen. I just don't understand. I'm watching this. I see there's got to be an investigation into this. I'm going all crockpot controversy here. I don't understand it. I just watch it. I don't see how it happened. Second question. I asked you guys a few weeks ago about AP. What does he have to do to prove to you that he's the guy? I'm not asking you that. I'm asking you about Aiden O'Connell because I saw some crazy things I didn't think I was ever going to see from Aiden O'Connell. What does this guy have to do for the rest of the season to say, hey, you don't need a quarterback next year? All right, guys, you take it easy. Go Raiders.
Wow. So the clapping is interesting because you do see it. I don't know how many seconds, but we've talked about it earlier in the show, Jacob. So thanks for your call again. But I think there's been, again, go to the Dan Orlovsky breakdown. I think that's the best way to look at it. So he's going to the question now of what does he have to do to get the starting job? And I'm like, I don't know, mutate. I don't know. I mean, Jacob, I'm not trying to make fun of your question. I mean, I just think, look, I think Aiden O'Connell's a good quarterback. I just don't think he's a starting. If he was, they would have already started him. I mean, they would have already, look, Antonio Pierce. A lot of people keep saying, well, Antonio Pierce, Tom Telesco he gave him a crappy quarterback. The quarterback that Antonio Pierce used to go 5-4 last year was on the roster. Did he use him? No, sir. So whose fault is that? I mean, some of these arguments, it's like, look, people like the guy. Cool. I got no problem with that, but don't get into, fantastical things and recreate history because it's not going the way you want it to. But I think with Aiden O'Connell, look, he should have been given the opportunity to start at the beginning of the season, right? You and I talked about this all summer. It's like, look, we understood Gardner Minshew. We understood to a certain degree, even if we didn't agree with it, why they started him. But we always felt like, hey, Aiden O'Connell did pretty good for you last year. You went one game above 500 over the last 9. Why not see what he can do given the full-time role? And then you got the veteran in case things don't work out. And they just never gave him that chance.
2 quick things here, Scott. For me, this was supposed to be the year that we were supposed to find out what Aiden O'Connell's ceiling is. I think we talked about this ad nauseum for weeks during the summer. What is Aiden O'Connell's ceiling, right? We'll find out this year. And I said, and you agreed with this, I think, that if the competition is close between he and Gardner Minshew, you start Aiden O'Connell because he is the unknown. We don't know how good he could be. And he's put in another tough situation where you really can't fully assess that because now you have you're 2-10. The roster is what it is at this point. You're in a you're in a rough situation of the season. There's nothing Aiden O'Connell could do aside from throw for 350 plus yards in every game and not turn the ball over and throw 4 touchdowns. That'll make me say, yeah, you just pass on Shedeur Sanders and Cam Ward if you have a chance to draft him. Now, if he puts up those video game like numbers, you're probably winning football games, so you don't have a shot at Cam Ward or Shedeur anyway unless you trade up. But I said this after Ron's call. Until you have the thought that this is our guy, and usually you have a moment or stretch of games, not just after one game, but after a stretch of games where you think this is what he could be on a consistent basis. What am I about, Scott? The C word, consistency. We can appreciate O'Connell's 340-yard passing performance, 2 touchdowns, and still say, as I said before, let's keep an open mind about the quarterback position. If he can do that with consistency, then it becomes a discussion. It's not a discussion after one performance. Again, if you didn't think Aiden O'Connell was a franchise guy before that Chiefs game, I don't think one game should completely change your mind and say he's definitely the guy. I want to see a pattern. I want to see trends. I want to see consistency before I even put Aiden O'Connell in that discussion for the franchise quarterback.
Right. And remember, in the one game he started 2 games, but he got injured in the Rams game. But you look at the Pittsburgh game, the Raiders lost 32-13. He went 27 of 40 for 227, a touchdown and an interception. Not terrible numbers. Completion percentage was high. Yardage, okay. Touchdown, yeah. Interception, turned it over once. And then against the Rams, he didn't really get going because he got injured. But you look at that and it's like, what tells you there? To your point, he didn't have a fair opportunity either to really show it. But then the question becomes, let's move past that. The question becomes, Jacob or everybody else asking the question, are you willing to say, you know what, we'll take another year to evaluate him? and we'll draft Travis Hunter instead. And let's say Aiden O'Connell's ceiling is low. Let's just say he proves to be what we think he is, which is a good backup quarterback. And then what do? You're kicking the can down the road on the quarterback again. Well, you can go get a veteran. Who? Sam Darnold. Well, we don't know what Sam Darnold's going to do without that play calling ability in Minnesota. And he's cooled off a little bit, by the way. So, that's to me the danger. That's the risk. Are you willing to take that risk? And I think this franchise who needs an identity, I think they can't do that. So that's
Scott, really quick, Scott.
Yeah.
What's wrong with having Aiden O'Connell on? Why do we have to make a decision on whether Aiden O'Connell is the guy or not now? What's wrong with going into the offseason with Aiden O'Connell and drafting a quarterback and saying, well, if Aiden O'Connell beats out that quarterback, great. We have a franchise guy that we didn't think was a franchise guy. We were all wrong. Now, if he doesn't, and you have a young quarterback who you want to develop, great. Now you have a high quality backup quarterback. It's better to have 2 quality quarterbacks than have none. We don't need to make this decision on whether Aiden O'Connell's the guy or not. Keep him on the roster, draft your quarterback, and hopefully one of them pans out to be the guy. The Raiders need a quarterback answer. You don't put all your eggs in one basket. You have as many options as you can, and you move forward with that.
I forgot which of our callers earlier was saying, hey, draft a quarterback and then take another quarterback in the 4th round or the 5th round. Now they have other needs. But yeah, I don't see any problem. And a lot of teams, you see that they'll take a quarterback in the 5th or 6th round, even if they have a good starting quarterback, just because they're like, what the heck? You can never have too many. If it doesn't work out, it's a 5th or 6th round pick. So what? You got to nail 1 through 4, but hey, whatever. But anyway, good call, Jacob, as always. You got something else?
Really quick, Scott. Do you remember what the Washington team did the year they moved up and got RG3? They also drafted Kirk Cousins in the 4th round.
Yeah.
And how did that work out? RG3 flames out, and then you got Kirk Cousins stepping in. So if you're a team that doesn't have your franchise quarterback, you just filter through those lottery tickets until one hits.
Exactly. Absolutely. Well said. All right. Our last call. We had a marathon show today. We're past an hour and a half already. Gotta love that. See, we're giving you your money's worth after the holiday. We know you're going to probably get on the treadmill today, after all that eating over the weekend. So here you go. All right. Here is Dave Casper, the Ghost, one of our favorite guys. Here he is.
Hey, guys. This is Dave Casper, the Ghost from upstate New York. Happy belated Thanksgiving. I just wanted to comment briefly about the Raider-Chiefs game. Being a fan for decades, there are some losses that are a real gut punch, and this was one. I'll be brief. The last couple of decisions in the game were on AP. Punting the ball, going for a punt, and then having to waste a timeout made no sense. You either go for a field goal or you try to get the first down. They could have used that timeout in the last drive where not understanding why they wanted to spike the ball on that last play or run another play to get it down when in a shotgun formation, no less. Too much risk, not enough reward. They should have just kicked the field goal. It would have been a 47, 48-yard field goal. That's on AP as well. On the bright side, a Sincere McCormick, get him more carries. Brock Bowers, enough said. Aiden O'Connell, have him start out the rest of the year. Great stopgap, backup quarterback going into the future. But overall, I'm not going to put this loss on AP, but again, in-game decision-making hurt the team. That last play made no sense. He said he was going to snap it and throw it out of bounds, to kill a few seconds, or you run a play and you throw it to the sideline, gain a few yards. You can't really throw it over the middle of the field unless you really speed up and spike the ball. So overall, bad decision-making yet again by this coach. Anyway, guys, I'll keep listening.
Dave Casper, the Ghost, upstate New York. Thanks, my man. We appreciate it. Yeah, I mean, he's repeated what I think a lot of the callers have said. And again, this is not a dislike for the coach. It's just observing what we've seen repeated times, which is this kind of game management issue. And, it's hard to argue with that, man. It is. And so that's where the Raiders are at. And clearly Mark Davis and the staff, whoever's on that deciding or whoever's going to be deciding the future will have to take that all into consideration, Bo.
Just a quick comment that I want to be clear about. We're not blaming AP for the Raiders' loss on Friday. But what I am saying, I'll speak for myself on this one. You can add your 2 cents in, Scott. AP didn't lose that game for the Raiders, but he could have helped them avoid disaster on that last sequence if he had saved that timeout. That's where I'm coming from on it. And part of being a head coach is not always making the right decision or not. Sometimes it's saving your team from disaster.
Yeah.
Being that overarching set of eyes to see, okay, things are a little out of control. Let's call a timeout, slow things down here. But the Raiders didn't have that option because of the punt field goal unit indecisiveness they had on that late drive. So again, not blaming this on AP, but he could have saved the team from that situation.
And being a head coach is tough, man. Like I'm not saying it's easy. Like it shouldn't be just like, oh, no, it's hard. Things come at you fast. Like that stuff happens fast. You're watching it on TV and it happens fast. Imagine being the guy who's got to make the call. Mm-hmm. So that's why guys who do it really well at a high level, you have to respect. And it's not just about knowing football. It's about management. It's about leadership. It's all that stuff together. So it's very tough. But we'll see. We'll see how it nets out and what the impact of that becomes at the end of the season. For now, Raiders will be focused on getting ready for another game. And we'll be focused on getting ready for another show. We'll be back with you on Thursday. Mo, in the meantime, as we sit here on Tuesday, what do you want to let people know about you're up to between now and then?
So I'm going to try to calm down that Aiden O'Connell should be the franchise quarterback for the Raiders crowd. Over on Sports Night, I'm going to write a piece saying, let's appreciate Aiden O'Connell's performance on Friday, but let's let this thing bake. We don't have to have a strong proclamation of, where he should be right now. The Raiders have 5 more games left to play. Let's play out the string. Let's play out the 5 games, and then we can talk about that at the end of the season. So that'll be up on Sports Night, probably Wednesday. And then Bleacher Report live also on Wednesday, 4 p.m. Eastern Time, 1 p.m. Pacific. We're going to look ahead and look at some Raiders who should be foundational roster building blocks for the 2025 season and beyond. We're looking at a rebuild, let's be honest. We'll be back here with you, Scott, on Thursday. And of course, always have a post-game Bleacher Report live. This Sunday, after the Tampa Bay Buccaneers game, the Raiders have an early kickoff on the East Coast time zone. Mm-hmm. Break it down, win, lose, or tie.
We will. We'll be back on Thursday. It'll be fun. Mo, thanks, man. I appreciate it. All right. And I want to thank you for being here with us. And don't forget to subscribe to the show wherever you get your audio. Just look for Silver and Black today and Odyssey Sports Original Podcast. Also, make sure you rate and review the show. We always appreciate those comments and the feedback there as well. And also a thank you to our good folks at BetUS who bring you the video wherever you're watching the video. And again, got to remind you of this killer promotion, 150% sign-up bonus, YouTube 150. That's YouTube 150. And guess what? We're going to give you that bonus up to $2,000. Ready? Up to $2,000 just using the code YouTube 150. So make sure you get on there and do that and bet where Mo and I bet as well with BetUS. So thank you to them. Thanks to our producer, Mike Robier. Appreciate you guys being with us. We gave you a long show today. We'll be back on Thursday. Have a good week, Raider Nation, as you get back out of the holiday weekend. We certainly appreciate you being with us. For Mo Moton, for Mike Robier, I'm Scott Gulbransen. This has been Silver and Black today. We'll see you next time.